All right. Well, welcome in everybody to the CFB Nation All America podcast brought to you by Twisted Tea. Bill, you got your Twisted Tea, I hope.
I do. It's right here.
Very good. I'm Bill Trojan, senior editor. What is going on?
That was you. I'm all plugged in and good. Hello.
Did you hear all that?
I lost you for a minute, but I'm like plugged in, hardwire. Everything's good.
Okay.
Well, keep going. We are live. Hello. Is that you? It can't be me this time.
No, I know. I'm just hearing an echo. That's all.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know where that came from.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, so welcome in to the CFB Nation All America podcast alongside Bill Bender, our national college football writer. I'm Bill Trochi, senior editor at sportingnews.com. You can follow Bill on Twitter.
You sound like you're underwater.
All right. I don't know what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is disappointing. This is disappointing. Yeah, like 10 seconds later, everything I said starts to come through everything. You don't hear it?
I can hear you.
But
fine.
like 10 seconds later, do you hear everything we just talked about?
No. Like you're fine. If it sounds like you're underwater. No comments.
Man, I don't know what to do.
I don't either.
Yeah, we're having total technical difficulty. Like, I don't know. It's
on. It sounds like you're underwater.
I can't do it. I can't do it like this because we can't have a conversation.
Okay. Well, somebody's commenting. Hold on. Hey guys, you're both live right now.
I know. I wonder what's happening.
He says we can hear you.
Okay.
Well, let's try it. And then if we have to let it go and you can't do it, then we'll just scrap it.
Okay.
Cool. Hello. Hello. Go ahead.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, here's our week 5 wrap-up show. Thank you for joining, everybody. And we want to start with the one in Boulder, where all the A-list celebrities were. Number 8, USC, 48, Colorado, 41. Caleb Williams, 6 touchdown passes. Shedeur Sanders threw 4, and he ran for 1. Colorado was in control, leading 48-21, but Colorado scores the final 20 points of the game. Colorado never had the ball to win, but they put some pressure on them, and I thought that was surprising.
Yeah, I mean, it was Caleb Williams, 6 touchdowns, looked really good. I mean, it looked like they were going to blow them out by 40 points, and Deion's team showed fight, and they actually, this game flipped from Caleb Williams' Heisman coronation, which you could still argue it was. He threw 6 touchdowns, had 400 yards, to Colorado exposing the USC defense again. The same questions about the USC defense are going to be out there. Shedeur Sanders was incredible. I mean, they had a breakout receiver. Cormani McLean played more. They were missing some guys. So I mean, Amarion Miller had a monster game. So, as Dion said afterward, I mean, you're going to have to get us now. I think they'll fade a little bit now. I mean, because they're not going to play as interesting opponents, but it could kick back up when they play a bowl game because I think they'll make a bowl game. I think they'll get to 6 somehow, scratch out 6 victories. But to me, the bigger story was obviously USC and that defense because Caleb Williams is unbelievable. The offense is awesome. Brendan Rice was great, but they're going to get caught in a 40-point game where they lose. And that's going to happen at some point because Oregon, Washington State, there's so many teams they're going to have to play and play better on that side of the ball.
I mean, it was unbelievable to have 2 true freshmen in Kamani Mark McLean and then Mario Miller, who had not really contributed at all, come in off the bench, pretty cold, and both of them played great. I mean, Miller was unbelievable. His catch in the end zone. I mean, Sanders made a great throw off the scramble, no question about it. But I thought the catch was even better. Sliding, and the defender was right in front of him. And to think he's a true freshman, had 0 catches coming into the game was just unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was huge, and it was a good performance by Colorado. I think Dion afterward saying come and get us. I mean, I've done this long enough. I just kind of shrug. Okay, well, show me. Like you're a 3-2 team that just gave up, had that many points. I mean, I'd have no problem with Dion, and every coach says that when they lose. But I was impressed with the fight with the Buffaloes, and we'll see if they can continue that momentum. I think some general interest will drift off because people don't like teams that lose. I mean, that's the way it is, and they get off bandwagons pretty quick. But I do think Dion has some staying power. They'll get to a bowl game, and again, we'll figure out more about USC in a couple weeks when they play Notre Dame.
Get away from the spotlight a little bit next week. They're on the Pac-12 network. I think it's Arizona State. So a little low-profile game. We'll see if Travis Hunter might come back. He was there at the game. Maybe his liver injury is healing, hopefully. And we'd like to see him back on the field. But it'll be good, I think, for the team itself to kind of get away from the spotlight a little bit and see if they can just have a regular week rather than trying to be this rock star team or whatever. So let's move on to the game that just finished about 15 minutes ago. Number 11, Notre Dame 21, number 17, Duke 14. Sam Hartman drives Notre Dame 95 yards in the last 2 minutes. Notre Dame was struggling offensively, trying to hold Duke off. Riley Leonard pushed the Devils in front 14-13 late in the game. And then Notre Dame converted a 4th and 16 with about 31 seconds to go. And Sam Hartman scrambled. That's not his forte, but it was weird. I want to get your take on this. Duke was blitzing on that last possession. And then on 4th and 16, like Notre Dame did the previous week, rushed only 3, dropped 8, ended up giving up the 4th and 16. I think that might be a call that Mike Elko regrets next week.
Oh, yeah, it absolutely will because Sam Hartman had time to look across the middle of the field, look back to the right, look back to the middle, and then he just went for it. And that was a season-saving play to scramble for the first down, and they score the next play after that. And what an emotional couple 10 days for Notre Dame. And we're going to see what their emotional bandwidth is because they got to do it again next week. We got to go play Louisville, primetime, ranked. Cardinals will be ranked now with Brian Brom and that team. And then they got to do USC here in a few weeks, and they're going to be ranked. So we're going to find out what this team's about. I do think they were in danger of being beaten twice. Duke had 2. It was almost like the reverse of last week's game. Wake Forest, Sam Hartman. Duke had 2 long drives, just like Notre Dame against Ohio State. Notre Dame had to make the plays at the end of the game, just like Ohio State did, and they were the ones that made it. And, with Riley Leonard, the way that he played and how tough he was, it's a shame that he went down with that ankle injury at the end of the game, and says a lot about Sam Hartman that he kind of brushed off the post game interview to go check on Leonard. I mean, that's a high character guy. Huge win for the Irish, and we'll see. But I mean, having that many primetime games in a row, like people, one of our listeners says yawn, but yeah, you're going to be tired because you're going to be up all night playing these games, and they're for college kids. That's not easy.
Yeah, I mean, just think about Duke's season. They were, a minute a play away from 5-0 with wins over Clemson and Notre Dame, and 2 plays later, 3 plays later, your starting quarterback may be out for an extended period. He looked like he was in a lot of pain. It's hard to guess, but and then you end up, giving up the getting your first loss, might drop to the fringes of the top 25. Just an incredible turn of events.
Yeah, and huge for the Irish. Huge win. It's probably going to keep them in right on the outskirts of the top 10. They may drop a spot or two. We'll see. There's still one loss, and as long as you don't lose two and you're Notre Dame, you're in business. For Duke, they'll still be able to compete in the ACC, but it's going to be tough now. I mean, that was a tough, heartbreaking loss, but another one where the Irish got it done.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we will move on from Notre Dame and talk a little bit about Georgia. Number one, Georgia. They had another scare, just like they did in their first SEC game. South Carolina got a 10-point lead on them in the first half. And it's time they go down to Auburn. Auburn's been struggling offensively big time. They run all over the Georgia Bulldogs, surprisingly, over 200 yards. You had a stat. It's been a long time since Georgia's given up 200 yards rushing. Georgia has to come from behind, and Brock Bowers has the unbelievable second half. I think he had 8 catches for 146 yards just in the second half. And Georgia pulls it out 27-20. Were you surprised that Georgia struggled as much as they did against an Auburn team that this isn't a vintage Auburn team?
No, yeah. Yeah, I thought they would blow them out, and here they are in another dogfight. Second time they trailed by double digits in the first half and gave up 200 rushing yards. They haven't done that since 2018. There's a reason why it's hard to three-peat. They're getting everybody's best shot. That's going to continue. But they got it done. I mean, Brock Bowers took the game over. I mean, there's our All-American tight end. Just pencil him in at Sporting News. I mean, that you play like that was unbelievable. And it shows, like, and we're going to bring this out tomorrow. The top 10 teams in the country, it's wide open. From Georgia to Oklahoma, you can make a case for any of them to be the best team in the country. You can make a case for any of them to lose 2 games. So I think this race, despite the fact that Georgia's unbeaten, is wide open. The national championship race is wide open, 1-10, and also a reminder that Hugh Freeze can coach offense. That offense bugged Georgia like it used to bug Nick Saban when he was at Ole Miss, and they're a really good football team coming. Not yet. I mean, he needs the right quarterback. He needs the right pieces, but Auburn's going to be pretty good here in a few years.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it's funny when you say that the race is wide open. I was talking to you today about looking at the top 10, the top 15 teams in the nation. Like, we haven't had an upset yet, like a seismic upset. LSU has lost. They lost to Ole Miss tonight. That might be qualifying as the biggest upset of the year because, LSU had lost, but they lost to Florida State. Good team. Alabama had lost, but they lost to Texas. Good team. Notre Dame lost, but they lost to Ohio State. Good team. We haven't had someone jump up in class and pull off the upset.
Right.
At the same time, it does feel like there's a lot of parity up there, and there's no runaway teams.
No, that's kind of it. There's a lot of teams with a lot of holes. Like we talked about USC's defense. We talked about Georgia dropping these leads. I mean, the next teams will be, Michigan was just absolutely dominant today. They smacked Nebraska around. I thought that might be closer. Their defense, they have the best defense in the country. Like, period. Like, it's period, exclamation point, whatever else. They're amazing on that side of the ball. And Penn State and Ohio State have really good defenses too. So Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Those three are going to be in the mix. I think the Pac-12. I mean, Washington, as we speak, they're putting up some points. They're up by 11 at halftime. They're a team to watch. I still think they're the team that's been the most impressive. But we'll get in and watch some of their second half. But it's going to be and Oregon. Oregon's just beat teams
Right.
42-6 in back-to-back weeks.
Yeah. So let's talk about number 3, Texas. They hosted Kansas today. Late in the third quarter, this was still a one-score game, and Kansas did not have their starting quarterback. Jalen Daniels had a back problem. He was a late scratch. Jason Bean had to be the QB, and they hung in there for a while, and then Texas put their foot on the gas late in the third quarter, early, and then in the fourth, they felt like they could have put it away sooner. They missed some field goals. They just had some things go wrong here and there. They ended up with over 300 yards rushing and 300 yards passing, which is a rare feat, especially in a conference game like that against a pretty good team. Kansas was in the top 25. So, do you feel better about Texas today than you did before today?
Yeah, because they blew that open. I mean, and some of it was spoiled by Jalen Daniels not being in. I thought Kansas would keep that game close, and they didn't. Sets up going to be an awesome Red River showdown, Red River rivalry, whatever we have to call it now, because Texas is good, and they had the triplets. They had Quinn Ewers, really efficient. They had uh, Jonathan Brooks, over 100 yards. Again, Adonai Mitchell, huge game. Xavier Worthy, right behind him. They have so many weapons on offense, and you can't lose a one-score game if you don't play a one-score game, and they haven't done that yet. They've been in control of every game. So the Oklahoma game will be a lot closer than last year. It's not going to be 49 nothing again, but that's a good Texas team.
Yeah, that's going to be really fun, definitely. So let's go over into the SEC tonight for a wild one. Tackling optional in the Ole Miss LSU showdown. It ended up being Ole Miss 55, LSU 49, and suddenly LSU, who a lot of people had as a potential playoff team, an SEC West champ, especially with Alabama down a little bit, suddenly they have 2 losses, and we're not even out of September yet. So they're the team that surprised, I guess, that has kind of dropped out early. Clemson, 2 losses, LSU, 2 losses. You wouldn't have thought that at the beginning of the season.
No, they're embarrassing on defense tonight, and games like that are embarrassing. Like, some people find those games entertaining. There's guys running soft coverage, terrible defense, and with that kind of talent, I'm sorry, it's LSU has nobody to blame but themselves. I mean, poor clock management, everything that goes. I mean, yeah, and you get in a game like that with Lane, and he's aggressive, and they finally won one. But I mean, LSU's got nobody to blame but themselves. It's got some serious issues on the back end of that defense, and when your offense is that good, if you can't manage a game like that, I mean, sometimes it happens, but yeah, they gave up 700 yards tonight. So what playoff team gives up 700 yards in a game ever? None. It doesn't happen. So I think I've told you that for years. Games like that, because it's not about high level execution so much as it was embarrassing defense, and that's what you get when you play defense like that.
So interesting strategy situation I wanted to ask you about when Ole Miss had the ball down 49-47 at about 45 seconds to a minute to go. They were in field goal range. They had an opportunity to take 3 knees and kick a field goal, but instead they went for the touchdown, and they got the touchdown. And given how LSU has already scored 49 points, I didn't want to give the ball back to LSU if I'm Ole Miss. I probably would have taken the knees and kicked the field goal in the last play of the game.
Well, Lane was telling him to get down. I saw it. That was explained
Okay,
afterwards. So,
okay.
like, it's not. I think Lane, that's what he wanted, and he just didn't get it. But yeah, all the same, exciting game. LSU had their chance at the end. This was a big win for Lane. It throws a wrench into the SEC West race, and but yeah, I mean, they're exciting games, but they're also, very rarely. I mean, like, if you like I said, if your defense gives up 700 yards, and then on the other end, if your defense gives up 650 yards, you're probably not going to the playoff.
So, any other games you want to touch on before we move on to next week's tailgate, which I think we know what game we're going to talk about for next week. But any
Oh,
other games kind of grab your attention today?
couple things we'll mention. One, James Franklin covering the spread by throwing it, 41-13. That made the bettors happy. You pointed out, I believe, that they're 5-0 now against the spread, and it's a good football team. They started slow today. Clemson bounced back, had a nice win. We mentioned Louisville; they will be ranked when Notre Dame plays them, and it's just shaping up. I'm kind of following right now. Alabama is going to win the SEC West. I'm just telling you now, they're going to play Georgia. They're not going to lose again. They may lose to LSU, maybe, but nah. I mean, Jalen Milroe is going to start against Carson Beck in the SEC championship game, and we're going to try to drum that up. That just tells you how wide open it is. So a long way to go, but yeah, I think that's pretty much my other takeaways. Oklahoma scored 50 today. That was a good one.
I know, I know. The one other thing about that, one other note about that LSU Ole Miss, I think I shared it with you Friday. Lane Kiffin career record against teams that finish with 9 wins is 1-19 against those teams. He beat Oregon when he was at USC early in his career. Now, will LSU finish with 9 wins? I think they will. So Lane can improve to 2-19, I guess, in that category. But I just thought that was interesting. So yeah, so let's look at week 6. What's the tailgate you want to be at? I have a feeling it is in proximity to the Texas State Fair.
Yeah, I mean that's one, but I mean Kentucky Georgia is right there with it in terms of a game that you'd want to see. I mean, this could decide the SEC East in theory. Kentucky looked really good today, and they've been trying to take these swings um, at Georgia for the. I went to one in Lexington where they had a chance to. They played for a half. So Mark Stoops has got something there. They just punked Florida today. They beat them 3 years in a row. That's not even it's a rivalry, obviously, but that's Kentucky's rivalry now. And but yeah, it would be Oklahoma, Texas. Last one before they go to the SEC. I've been to that game before. It's amazing. You have to go early. It's a bucket list item. The burnt orange on one side, the crimson and cream on the other. It's a fun rivalry, and there'll be more at stake this year. They may have to do it twice. They've done it twice before, but more pressure on Texas, I think. Yeah, I mean, because this is the team that's ranked a little higher. Oklahoma's still, like I said, they'll probably be ranked 10, but there's still some people that don't believe.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's going to be great. And one other note back to the Kentucky Florida is that Kentucky has now won 4 out of 6 after a 31-year losing streak in that series. And I think the bluegrass folks are eating that up for sure.
There'll be
So
two ranked Kentucky teams. I think Louisville and Kentucky will both be ranked tomorrow.
got a couple of sad Saturdays for you, Bill. A couple of
Uh-huh.
sad Saturdays. One involves my daughter was sitting at the color guard in the front row for the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Their bowl hopes took a big blow this week with an upset loss to Bowling Green out of the MAC. Your MAC. Bowling Green 38, Georgia Tech 27. Georgia Tech, they were coming off a nice win at Wake Forest. But I was going through to see if Brent Key could get him to a bowl game in his first season, and it's going to look doubtful now with this loss to Bowling Green. UConn had some heartbreak today. They scored a touchdown with 40 seconds left, come within 34-33 of Utah State. Extra point is blocked, and they go on to lose because of that extra point. And then, of course, we got to talk about Baylor, 36, UCF, 35. UCF 35-7 lead in the third quarter, and then Baylor with Blake Shapen comes out of nowhere, pulls off the victory.
Yeah, the BG one, there was a nice catch in that game too. One of the catch of the year type materials for the Falcons. So big win for them in our 1-133. They're going to climb up a little bit. Baylor, that was wild. I didn't see much of it, but I read enough tweets about it. That's pretty incredible comeback for them. And yeah, I mean, it's a sad Saturday in Duke too. I mean, you had your opportunity to win, and to make that happen. Baton Rouge on Monday morning, we're going to talk a lot about LSU. There's going to be a hefty hangover there because you're no two-loss team. Jacob Hester, who's visited the show before, will tell you there's been one two-loss national champion, but I just don't see that path for the Tigers. They're going to have to win every game now just to get into the SEC championship. So, yeah, and Cade McNamara got injured today. That was another one that Iowa transfer quarterback. We'll have to see if he's okay.
Yeah, definitely. That was a key injury that also happened that we got to worry about. I'm going to give my whoa Nelly this week to the game we just talked about. UCF quarterback Timmy McClain. You said you haven't seen the highlight yet. I encourage you to go find it on Twitter. Unbelievable play. So with a minute to go, it was 4th and 6 at their own 30. They had no timeouts, and they were losing 36-35. So the game was on the line. They had to convert the 4th and 6. He starts backpedaling under pressure. The line of scrimmage is at 30. He ended up back in his end zone eventually, dodging defensive linemen, stepped up to the 2-yard line, fired a pass, complete. They converted. Officially, it was a 12-yard pass, but it was about a 40-yard pass. And then UCF ended up missing a field goal in the last play of the game, and Baylor completed the comeback. But it is a fun play, and I encourage you to go find it. That was my whoa Nelly. I don't know if you had a whoa Nelly or not, but
I mean, pretty much just Brock Bowers. I mean, we can
it's
him
Brock
too.
Bowers winning touchdown, no doubt.
His fourth quarter, he had the one-handed catch. He caught a third down pass. He had a touchdown catch. I mean, dominant performance by a tight end, best player on the field when they needed him most. And Kirby, for his sake, that's coaching 101. Get the ball to your best player. And they got the ball to their best player in the clutch. There were some rough moments for them, but definitely Brock Bowers would be the whoa Nelly. The one-handed catch was pretty impressive, and everything else he did from there.
And Notre Dame's tight end as well.
Yes.
He was on Matthew Evans. Wow. I think he had 6 catches on 7 targets, and a lot of those, like you said, they weren't easy. They weren't easy catches.
I mean, well, go ahead, because I think he's your toast of the day.
Say what?
I said go ahead. I'll save the last one for our Twisted Tea toast.
Yeah. No. No, actually, I'm going to have a different toast. My final Twisted Tea toast, it's going to go to a former Vanderbilt Commodore, Ray Davis.
Nice.
Kentucky running back, 280 yards from scrimmage, 3 rushing touchdowns, 1 passing touchdown, including a 2-yard touchdown run from the Florida 2-yard line with 13 Gators on the field at that time. He still battled his way into the end zone. 13 Gators, 11 Gators. Florida did not have an answer for Ray Davis today. He is my Twisted Tea toast of the week.
No, and I'm going to have a co-one. I'll say Sam Hartman's run was the play of the day. I mean, that's a season saver, like I said. And I'm going to toast the state of Kentucky. 2 5-0 teams. Kentucky and Louisville doing their thing. Both going to be ranked. And on top of that, I went to this beer event a couple years ago, and I remember these 2 guys. There was one from Kentucky Jacket, one from a Louisville Jacket. They accosted me, knew who I was, which was the first time that's ever happened. And they said they read my Sporting News Top 25, and they said I was wrong. One said Louisville, one said Kentucky. We'll have both. If they're listening, we'll have both of them in there. I'm a little under the weather now. I was a little under something when I met those guys, but a bunch of beers. But they were very excited. So I know those 2 guys are going to be very excited tomorrow when those 2 are ranked.
Very good. All right. Well, that brings the curtain down on a fun week 5. We still got a few games going on. I don't expect any upsets. Alabama, I think, was in decent shape. Washington was in decent shape. We will put it to bed on sportingnews.com on Sunday. You will have the Sporting News 133, ranking everyone from 1 to 30 to 133. You'll have a new top 25, of course, with blurbs and everything, wrapping up everything for this week. And then we will turn the page and get going on to next week. start working on Oklahoma, Texas, and everything like that. So we want to thank everybody for listening to the CFB Nation All America podcast, brought to you by Twisted Tea on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And for those of you watching on our YouTube channel at CFB Nation, thanks to Irish Breakdown, your source for Notre Dame football. They got a lot to talk about tonight and a lot to talk about next week. We will be back throughout the week with more episodes. And don't forget to join us each Saturday night for our live reaction show again around 11:30 here on the CFB Nation YouTube channel. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we will see you soon.